After a Single War, Part 1. The Galactic Council chamber fell into an uncomfortable silence as Ambassador Zethkar's tentacles trembled against his ceremonial robes. The holographic display before the assembled delegates showed a simple star chart, but the implications made even the most battle-hardened warriors shift nervously in their seats. "Honored delegates," Zethkar began, his voice carrying the weight of terrible knowledge. "We have received confirmation. The humans have accepted our invitation to join the Galactic Council." A collective intake of breath echoed through the vast chamber. Representatives from over 300 species, beings who had conquered stars and built civilizations spanning millennia, suddenly felt very small. The Vraxian delegate, General Torak, stood on his 6 legs, his chitinous armor gleaming under the chamber's lights. "This is madness," Torak clicked through his mandibles. "We invite the very species that brought the mighty hegemony to its knees, the same humans who turned the conquest war into a nightmare that still haunts our sleep cycles." The memories were fresh, despite 3 standard years having passed since the war's end. Before humanity's emergence, the galaxy operated under a simple principle: might made right. The strongest species ruled, the weak served, and wars were fought with honor and predictable outcomes. The Zeltharian hegemony had been the undisputed masters of this order for over 2,000 years. Counselor Myroth, an ancient crystalline being whose species had witnessed the rise and fall of dozens of galactic empires, resonated a low harmonic tone. "Perhaps we should remind ourselves how we arrived at this moment, how a species that had barely achieved faster-than-light travel managed to—" She paused, searching for words that wouldn't diminish her own people's pride. "Fundamentally alter the balance of power in our galaxy." The chamber's central hologram shifted, displaying the Sol system as it appeared in the hegemony's first contact reports. Earth appeared as an unremarkable blue-green world, orbiting an average yellow star in what the hegemony had classified as Sector 7 Gamma, priority minimal. Ambassador Krelvos of the hegemony's surviving colonies stood slowly. His once proud crest lay flat against his skull, a permanent reminder of his species' fall from grace. The humans were supposed to be simple. Our xenobiologists classified them as standard carbon-based bipeds, technological level, primitive, threat assessment, negligible. We had protocols for first contact with such species. We had done it thousands of times before. The hologram shifted again, showing the massive hegemony dreadnought Eternal Dominance as it entered Earth's solar system. The ship was a monument to hegemony engineering, stretching nearly 50 kilometers from bow to stern, bristling with weapons that could crack planets and shields that had never failed in 2 millennia of warfare. "Admiral Vextar followed standard procedure," Krelvos continued, his voice hollow. "Deploy overwhelming force, demand immediate surrender, install a puppet government, begin resource extraction. It had worked on over 800 worlds. The humans should have surrendered within hours. But humans, as the galaxy would soon learn, did not follow protocols. The first indication that something was wrong came when Earth's response to the surrender demand arrived. Instead of the expected capitulation or desperate pleas for mercy, the humans sent a single message: go to hell." Admiral Vextar had been puzzled by the translation. The concept of hell didn't exist in hegemony culture. Their linguists explained it as some sort of mythological punishment realm. The admiral dismissed it as primitive superstition and ordered the demonstration bombardment of Luna, Earth's moon. Surely watching their satellite reduced to cosmic dust would motivate proper submission. The humans' response was immediate and utterly unexpected. They attacked. Not with the desperate fury of a cornered animal, but with cold, calculated precision that caught the hegemony fleet completely off guard. Human ships appeared from nowhere, their primitive-looking vessels somehow slipping past sensors that could detect a grain of sand at light years' distance. They struck at the fleet's weak points with surgical accuracy, targeting shield generators and weapon systems with weapons that shouldn't have been able to penetrate hegemony defenses. "Our ships were superior in every measurable way," General Torak added, his compound eyes dim with remembered horror. "Better shields, better weapons, better armor. But the humans fought like they had studied our every weakness for centuries. They knew exactly where to hit us." What the hegemony didn't understand was that humanity had indeed been studying them. For the 30 years since first detecting alien signals from deep space, Earth's greatest minds had been preparing. They analyzed every intercepted communication, every piece of technological data, every hint of alien capability. When the hegemony arrived expecting easy conquest, they found a species that had turned preparation into an art form. The battle for Earth's moon lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the mighty eternal dominance was a drifting hulk, its crew either dead or captured. Admiral Vextar himself sat in a human detention facility, still unable to comprehend what had happened to his invincible fleet. But Earth's defense was just the beginning. They didn't just repel our invasion. Counselor Myrath's crystalline form pulsed with unsettling colors. They followed us home. The hologram now displayed the Proxima Centauri system, the hegemony's closest military outpost to Earth. Within weeks of the failed invasion, human ships began appearing throughout hegemony space, not as conquering fleets, but as ghosts in the machine. Supply convoys vanished without distress calls. Communication arrays went silent. Patrol ships reported strange contacts on their sensors moments before losing all contact with command. It was psychological warfare on a scale we had never imagined, Ambassador Krelvos whispered. They didn't just fight our ships, they fought our minds. Every shadow could hide a human vessel. Every silence could mean death was coming. The humans had taken the concept of asymmetrical warfare and elevated it to a cosmic scale. Their ships were smaller, built for stealth and speed rather than raw firepower. They struck where the hegemony was weakest, when they were least prepared, and vanished before retaliation was possible. Supply lines that had operated securely for centuries became death traps. Military bases that had stood unconquered for millennia found themselves under siege by an enemy they couldn't see coming. We tried to adapt. General Torak's mandibles clicked nervously. We increased patrols, improved our sensors, deployed our most advanced countermeasures, but for every move we made, the humans seemed to anticipate our response. It was as if they could read our tactical manuals. In reality, humans had done something far more devastating than reading alien tactical manuals. They had rewritten the rules of war entirely. Where other species saw space as an ocean to be controlled with massive fleets, humans saw it as a forest where hunters could remain hidden until the perfect moment to strike. Where aliens fought for territory and resources, humans fought for psychological dominance, understanding that fear was a weapon more powerful than any plasma cannon. The turning point came at the Battle of Kepler Station, the hegemony's greatest shipyards, protected by layers of automated defenses and a fleet of over 200 warships, should have been impregnable. The station had never been successfully attacked in over 800 years of operation. The humans didn't attack the station directly. Instead, they turned its own defenses against it. "We still don't understand exactly how they did it," Krelvos admitted, his crest flattening further with shame. "Our investigation teams found evidence of some kind of electronic intrusion, but the methods they used were incomprehensible. They convinced our own defense systems that the station itself was an enemy target." For 6 terrifying hours, Kepler Station's defensive grid turned inward, its massive weapons tearing the facility apart while the automated systems registered successful hits against enemy infiltrators. The hegemony fleet found itself caught between their own defenses and human ships that appeared and disappeared like phantoms, striking at precisely the right moments to cause maximum chaos. When the battle ended, Kepler Station was a ruin, the hegemony fleet was scattered, and the galaxy's most advanced shipbuilding facility was in human hands. More importantly, the psychological impact rippled across hegemony space like a shockwave. If Kepler's station could fall, nowhere was safe. The war lasted only 18 standard months, Counselor Myrith observed, her harmonic tones carrying a note of awe. In that time, the humans didn't just defeat the hegemony's military, they systematically dismantled an empire that had stood for 2 millennia. The final blow came not through conquest, but through something far more devastating: economics. The humans had studied hegemony society and identified its critical weakness. The empire was held together not by force alone, but by an intricate web of trade relationships and resource dependencies. When human forces began systematically disrupting these connections, the empire began to collapse from within. Worlds that had been loyal for centuries suddenly found themselves cut off from essential supplies. Colonies that had never questioned hegemony rule watched their economies crumble as trade routes became battlegrounds. Fear and uncertainty spread faster than human ships, carrying whispers of an enemy that struck without warning and vanished without trace. The hegemony's surrender came not after a climactic final battle, but through a simple communication sent to every world in their empire simultaneously. The humans had somehow accessed and overridden every communication system in hegemony space, demonstrating a level of technological infiltration that made resistance seem pointless. The message was brief. This war ends now. Withdraw all military forces to your homeworld. Release all conquered peoples. Dismantle your weapons of mass destruction. You have 72 hours to comply. We complied, Krelvos said quietly. What choice did we have? They had demonstrated that they could reach us anywhere at any time. Our own technology had become a weapon in their hands. Resistance would have meant extinction. The aftermath was perhaps even more shocking than the war itself. Instead of establishing their own empire, the humans simply left. They dismantled the hegemony's war machine, helped establish provisional governments on liberated worlds, and then withdrew to their own system. The galaxy's new masters wanted nothing more than to be left alone. And that, Ambassador Zethkar concluded, is why we find ourselves here today. The humans have accepted our invitation to join the Galactic Council not as conquerors, but as equals. They seek not dominion, but cooperation. The chamber remained silent as delegates processed this reminder of how completely the galaxy's understanding of warfare had changed. A species that could have claimed an empire spanning thousands of worlds instead chose isolation and peace. It was a level of restraint that most galactic civilizations found incomprehensible. Tomorrow, Zethkar continued, a human delegation will arrive at Galactic Council Station. For the first time since the war's end, humanity will take its place among the stars not as warriors, but as diplomats. We must ask ourselves, are we prepared to treat as equals the species that redefined the very concept of power? As the delegates filed out of the chamber, each lost in their own thoughts, the holographic display returned to its simple star chart. At its edge, a small blue dot marked the Sol system, looking deceptively peaceful. None of the departing ambassadors needed to be reminded that appearances, especially when it came to humans, could be fatally deceiving. After a Single War, Part 2. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the UES Diplomatic Corps vessel Harmony, watching as the massive structure of Galactic Council Station grew larger in the distance. The station was a marvel of cooperative engineering, built by dozens of species over centuries of careful collaboration. Its spiraling architecture seemed to defy physics, with gravity wells and atmospheric pockets creating a truly three-dimensional city among the stars. Impressive, isn't it? Asked Dr. James Okafor, the mission's chief xenobiologist, joining her at the viewport. 200 million beings from over 300 different species, all living and working together in one structure. It's everything humanity dreamed of when we first looked up at the stars. Sarah nodded, though her expression remained thoughtful. It's also everything that could have been destroyed if we'd made different choices during the war. The weight of that statement hung between them. Both had served during the Hegemony War, Sarah as a naval intelligence officer, and James as a battlefield medic, treating both human and alien casualties. They understood better than most what humanity was capable of when pushed to its limits. "Contact from Council Station Control," announced Lieutenant Martinez from the communications station. "They're requesting permission to escort us to the diplomatic docking bay." "Granted," Sarah replied. "And Martinez, make sure our defensive systems remain passive. The last thing we want is to give anyone a reason to think we're here as conquerors." Through the viewport, a formation of sleek alien vessels approached the Harmony. Sarah recognized the designs from intelligence reports. Vraxian interceptors, their chitinous hulls gleaming like deadly insects. Aldorian patrol ships, all flowing curves and bioluminescent markings. Even a massive Taurillian dreadnought, its crystalline structure refracting star. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council fell silent as Admiral Cathara's claws scraped against the metal podium. Her reptilian features showed clear signs of stress, something that would have been unthinkable just 5 years ago. The Zeltharian Empire had ruled the galaxy for over 3,000 years, their military might unquestioned, their technology supreme. Now she stood before representatives of dozens of species, delivering a report that would change everything. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying the weight of defeat. "I must inform you that the Zeltharian Empire formally surrenders all claims to the Sol system and surrounding territories. Furthermore, we acknowledge the sovereignty of the species calling themselves humans." A ripple of shock passed through the assembled aliens. The Torak delegation, massive bear-like creatures covered in stone-hard scales, shifted nervously in their seats. The floating jellyfish-like ethers pulsed with confused bioluminescent patterns. Even the ancient crystalline collective, beings older than most civilizations, hummed with uncertainty. Counselor Vextar of the Meridian Alliance leaned forward, his 4 eyes narrowing. "Admiral, surely you cannot be serious. The Zeltharian Empire has never surrendered to anyone. Your fleet number's in the millions. Your ships can crack planets. How can a primitive world that only achieved space travel 2 centuries ago possibly—" "Because they don't fight like us," Cathara interrupted, her voice sharp with frustration and something that might have been fear. "They don't follow the rules of war. They don't respect the established order of battle. They are unpredictable." The word hung in the air like a curse. In a galaxy where warfare had been refined over millennia into predictable patterns, where battles followed ancient protocols and honor codes, unpredictability was the most terrifying weapon imaginable. "Perhaps you should explain from the beginning, Admiral," suggested Elder Morden of the Collective, his crystalline form resonating with harmonious tones. "Help us understand how this upset occurred." Cathara's tail lashed behind her, a sign of agitation she couldn't fully suppress. "Very well. It began 18 months ago, when our deep space surveys detected unusual energy signatures from the Sol system. Standard protocol dictated a territorial claim and resource assessment. The 3rd planet showed signs of primitive civilization, carbon-based bipeds with early fusion technology, and basic spacefaring capability. She activated a holographic display showing Earth as it had appeared to Zeltharian scouts. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents teeming with life. It looked peaceful, almost inviting. Initial assessment classified them as Level 3 civilization, suitable for either integration as a client species or resource harvesting depending on cooperation levels. I was assigned a standard subjugation fleet. 12 dreadnoughts, 40 cruisers, 200 escort vessels. More than enough to pacify a primitive world. The display shifted to show the massive Zeltharian fleet approaching Earth's solar system. The ships were works of art as much as instruments of war, their sleek hulls decorated with the victory banners of 1,000 conquered worlds. We followed established first contact protocols, Kythera continued. Transmitted universal greeting sequences, displayed our military strength, offered the standard choice: submit to Zeltharian rule and retain limited autonomy, or resist and face complete subjugation. We gave them 48 standard hours to respond. And their response? Asked Vextar, though something in his tone suggested he already suspected the answer wouldn't follow normal patterns. They said no. The simple statement caused another stir among the delegates. In 3,000 years of expansion, the Zeltharian Empire had received exactly 0 refusals to their ultimatums. Species either surrendered immediately upon seeing the fleet, or they were crushed so quickly that their resistance barely registered in official records. Not just no, Kythera clarified, her voice growing quieter. They told us to, and I quote the translation exactly, "Go to hell and take your ultimatum with you." Then they did something no species has ever done before. They attacked first. The holographic display showed the battle, or what could be captured of it. One moment, the Zeltharian fleet was in perfect formation, waiting for the human surrender that never came. The next moment, ships were exploding. Where did they come from? Breathed Ether Delegate Luminara, her translucent form flickering with nervous energy. The sensors show nothing. Then suddenly your ships are under attack. We still don't fully understand their stealth capabilities, Kythera admitted. Our sensors are calibrated to detect conventional ship signatures. But human vessels, they operated on principles we had never encountered. They masked their heat signatures, scattered sensor pings, even disguised their gravitational footprints. It was as if they had studied our detection methods for centuries and designed countermeasures for everything. What the Admiral didn't say, what she couldn't bring herself to admit even now, was how thoroughly the humans had outmaneuvered them in that first engagement. The human ships were smaller, seemingly less advanced, but they fought with a coordination that bordered on telepathic. Every movement seemed calculated to exploit weaknesses in Zeltharian formation that the Zeltharians themselves didn't know existed. Surely your superior firepower gave you the advantage once battle was joined, suggested a delegate from the hegemony worlds, his insectoid features clicking with nervous energy. Kythera's laugh was bitter. Superior firepower means nothing if you can't hit your target. The humans didn't fight in formations. They didn't follow engagement patterns. They swarmed like insects, struck like lightning, and vanished like ghosts. Our targeting systems couldn't lock onto them. Our battle computers couldn't predict their movements because their tactics followed no logical progression. The display showed human fighters dancing between massive Zeltharian dreadnoughts, their weapons somehow penetrating shields that had stopped planet-killer weapons. The smaller human ships moved like living things, reacting and adapting faster than any computer could calculate. But this was just one battle, protested Elder Morden. Surely your vast empire could absorb such losses and respond with overwhelming force. That's what we thought, Kythera replied grimly. I retreated to Zeltharian space to regroup and request reinforcements. Command assigned me an entire sector fleet, 300 capital ships, 1,000 escorts, 500,000 troops. We would return to Sol system and demonstrate proper Zeltharian might. She paused, her claws digging small grooves in the podium metal. We never made it back to Earth. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Even the background hum of the station's life support systems seemed muted. The humans followed us home, not with a fleet, but with individual ships. Sometimes just one vessel would appear in a system, cause catastrophic damage, and disappear before our response forces could engage. They struck at our supply convoys, our communication networks, our refueling stations. They never held territory, never tried to conquer our worlds. They just disrupted everything. The campaign the humans waged defied every principle of warfare the galaxy understood. Traditional military doctrine focused on controlling territory, destroying enemy fleets, and forcing surrender through overwhelming strength. But humans seemed to understand that in a galaxy-spanning empire, logistics were more important than battleships. They turned our size against us, Kythera explained. The larger our response, the more targets we presented. Every supply convoy needed escorts. Every escort fleet needed its own supplies. Every communication relay became a potential target. They forced us to spread our forces so thin that we couldn't effectively defend anything. Delegate Vextar leaned back in his chair, his 4 eyes wide with realization. They were fighting the Empire itself, not just your military. Exactly. And they understood something about us that we didn't understand about ourselves. Our empire was strong because it was predictable. Worlds knew what to expect from Zeltharian rule. Trade routes operated on schedules that hadn't changed in centuries. But the humans made everything uncertain. Merchant ships stopped traveling unescorted routes. Planetary governors began requesting additional security. The fear of human attacks was more damaging than the attacks themselves. The display showed a map of Zeltharian space, with red markers indicating human strikes. At first, the attacks seemed random, but as months passed, a pattern emerged. The humans weren't just hitting military targets, they were systematically dismantling the infrastructure that held the Empire together. The breaking point came at the Battle of Kepler Station, Kythera continued, our most heavily defended shipyard, protected by an entire battle fleet and orbital weapons platforms that could destroy asteroids. The humans didn't attack it directly. Instead, they somehow convinced our own defense systems that the station itself was an enemy target. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The implications were staggering. The Zeltharian defense networks were considered unhackable, protected by quantum encryption and isolated AI systems. How? Demanded Elder Morden, his crystalline form pulsing with urgent harmonics. We're still investigating. Our best theory is that they didn't hack our systems in any conventional sense. Instead, they fed false data to our sensors, making our defensive AI believe it was tracking an invasion fleet. When the station's weapons opened fire on what they thought were enemy ships, they were actually destroying the station's own infrastructure. The genius of the human strategy was becoming clear to the assembled delegates. Rather than trying to overpower Zeltharian technology, they had turned it against itself. They had weaponized the Empire's own efficiency and predictability. After Kepler Station fell, panic spread throughout the Empire. If our most secure facility could be compromised, nowhere was safe. Worlds began declaring independence. Fleet commanders started ignoring orders from Central Command. The Empire that had stood for 3 millennia began collapsing from within. Kythera's voice grew quiet, almost reflective. The humans sent us one final message before we surrendered. A simple data packet transmitted simultaneously to every Zeltharian world, every ship, every military installation. They had somehow accessed our entire communication network without us detecting them. What did it say? Asked Delegate Luminara, though her tone suggested she might prefer not to know. War is over. Go home. Live in peace. This is your only warning. Kythera's claws clicked against the podium. We went home. What choice did we have? They had demonstrated that they could reach anywhere in our empire at any time without warning. Continued resistance would have meant the complete destruction of our civilization. The chamber remained silent as the full implications sank in. A single world, barely advanced enough to be considered a spacefaring civilization, had brought the galaxy's greatest empire to its knees in less than 2 years. They had done it not through superior technology or overwhelming force, but through tactics so alien that established military doctrine was useless against them. Where are they now? asked a small voice from the Meridian delegation. The humans, I mean, are they coming for the rest of us? Kithra's expression softened slightly. That's the strangest part of all. After we surrendered, they simply went home. They didn't demand tribute or territory. They didn't try to establish their own empire. They just returned to Earth and closed their borders. Our intelligence suggests they've resumed their pre-war activities as if nothing happened. But surely they must have demands, conditions for their victory. Only one. They want to be left alone. Any ship that enters Sol's system without permission is turned away. They've made it clear that they have no interest in galactic politics or expansion. They fought us only because we threatened them first. Elder Mordun's harmonics took on a thoughtful tone. A species that wages war only in self-defense, but wages it so effectively that resistance becomes impossible. This changes everything we thought we knew about the nature of power in the galaxy. Yes, Kithara agreed. The humans have shown us that in warfare, unpredictability trumps superior technology. That fear can be more powerful than firepower. That sometimes the greatest victory is simply convincing your enemy that fighting is pointless. As the session concluded and delegates began filing out of the chamber, each lost in their own thoughts, one fact remained clear to all. The galaxy's balance of power had shifted permanently. Somewhere in the distant Sol system, a species that wanted only to be left alone had become the most feared military force in known space. And the truly terrifying part was that they had done it without even trying to be conquerors.